The green network is not our first foray into sustainability, energy efficiency and the digitalisation of industry. In 2009, we set out to highlight the role of telecoms in the green economy and produced the documentary film The Green Planet. Well, that was 15 years ago. In association with the GSMA and ITU and with commercial support from Ericsson, HPE and Juniper Networks, we created a weekly video series with each episode exploring a specific area of sustainability. And the series culminated with a report from the much-hyped COP15 climate conference in Copenhagen, where the telecoms industry hoped its message would be warmly received. Unfortunately, despite best intentions and considerable effort, things didn't quite work out so well. However, it is worth looking back at that period because I feel we are in a similar situation today. There's a huge risk that the recent momentum behind the green network will fall away and we will miss another great opportunity to make a lasting and positive change. To begin, here's an edited version of the film we produced for the ITU to support its green efforts back in 2009.
Former Vice President Al Gore called it an inconvenient truth. The world is facing global warming, climate change and environmental meltdown. Energy use and CO2 emissions need to be reduced. Governments, businesses and individuals all need to be aware of the situation and be empowered to make changes. And central to these changes will be ICT.
The role of technology in today's society is very significant. With 6.5 billion people on the planet, more and more of those people connected, more and more of those people using computing devices, businesses relying on technology. So technology plays a very important role in today's society.
ICT accounts for about 2% of total greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. But ICT has the potential to help reduce the remaining 98% in other sectors. Enabling ICT solutions could save up to 8 gigatons of CO2 by 2020, roughly 15% of these emissions. And ICT-enabled energy efficiencies could produce $950 billion in cost savings.
It is very clear that we can't get to the targets we want in this world unless we leverage technology. We have to use technology, that's clear. And I would say almost every politicians start to realize that. That's why Obama in his stimulus package, he has a rollout of fixed broadband. The Chinese have part of their stimulus package is the rollout of mobile broadband. So it's a huge difference from where I see it over only the last couple of years.
In 2007, Australian operator Telstra commissioned a landmark report that looked at how telecoms could help reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
I think the results were quite, quite surprising, not just for Telstra, but also for us, which was, I don't think we'd appreciated the significance of the telecommunications sector as a provider of solutions to climate change problems.
We believe that a fibre to the home proposal, combined with a smart metering and smart grids, will drive a reduction in the carbon footprint. If you look around the world, there are examples in the US where smart grids have been introduced, that future power plants that have been commissioned have been able to be decommissioned. And we believe in a country which is as energy rich as Australia, and we've got per capita one of the highest carbon footprints. This will allow us to demand manage people's homes. It will allow us to sell electricity back into the market, which will reduce overall demand. It's just a more efficient way to manage people's homes.
Recognizing the damage that corporate travel is doing to our climate, businesses are increasingly looking for cost-effective alternatives.
It makes good business sense. And for us, it's twofold. One is we get productivity improvements and reduce our carbon footprint, but also we have a great opportunity to go and present it to our customers and say, hey, why don't you do it as well? And therefore, we're getting a double benefit along the way. And as I go and talk to government agencies, departments, and our large customers, they're very, very interested.
One of the important things for people is that when they use visual communications, they want to have an experience that's as good as being there without the hassle of travel. And as good as being there means that all of the attributes of light and sound and the sense of presence have to be as good as that physical interaction.
Just as green ICT can help other commercial sectors improve their energy efficiency and reduce their CO2 emissions, it can also help governments with their own green agendas.
The cities are starting to get it, and we are living in an increasingly urban world, and people are going to be living in these big mega cities with 20-30 million people in. So we've got to start to plan those cities incredibly carefully and smartly if people are going to be able to coexist and not do too much damage to the planet. So urban planners are beginning to think about, okay, how do we make those cities sustainable? How do we collect information about how people need to travel, their energy use and so on, and make them as environmentally friendly as possible?
There's no reason for any buildings to be built today that is not generating more energy than it's using. So all of a sudden, the world's largest user of energy, buildings, which is contributing to about 40% of the world's emission, could be turned into a solution. But then we need these sort of intelligent solutions, broadband connectivity, because otherwise you would not be able to make the interior smart. You can't design it in a smart way. You can't control the electricity use so it's optimal.
Telecoms and internet usage in the developing world has been moving faster than the growth rate in developed economies. However, 2 to 3 billion people, roughly a third of the world's population, live in energy poverty. And without power, there can be no ICT.
When you get to frontier markets, when you get to the villages in rural Kenya, which are not yet connected by mobile, you will most likely not find reliable energy sources or grid electricity. And so the conventional approach for operators to round that problem is to put in a diesel generator and truck diesel back and forth to the site on a regular basis. And the majority of operators that we've worked with said we would like to find a better solution where we don't have to send trucks, where we don't have to continue to buy large amounts of diesel, and also where we can reduce our impact on the planet, because running diesel generators is a carbon emitting activity. So there's a logical win.
It's not just access to energy. Energy scarcity is also a major concern. According to the Global E-Sustainability Initiative, data centers represent about 18% of the total ICT greenhouse gas emissions.
Data centers are energy hogs. A typical data center uses somewhere between 30 and 80 times the amount of energy per square foot or per square meter as a traditional office building.
2 to 5% of the electrical consumption in the US is now inside of data centers, and honestly I think it's larger than that because they're only sampling the data centers themselves, not the server rooms and labs and everything else that runs companies.
The realization that the world's resources are finite has led to a move towards sustainable manufacturing and greater emphasis being placed on recycling and reuse.
When you get a new phone, you get an envelope to recycle your old phone. It's also encouraged in store on our website. I think the other side of it isn't just about encouraging people to get new handsets. So we do have things like the Simplicity tariff, which is SIM only, where we have actually incentivized people to also use their phones for longer.
Between 20 and 50 million tons of electronic waste is created every year. E-waste, such as unwanted mobile phones and PCs, make up 5% of all municipal solid waste worldwide. This is about the same amount as all plastic packaging waste, but contains materials that are far more hazardous.
In the different applications within the mobile phone, you need, for example, brominated flame retardants to prevent the mobile phones or the circuit boards or the laminates from bursting into flames. In the cables, you've got phthalates that are softeners that make the plastics in the cable soft, for example. And these are chemicals that have endocrine disrupting properties. That is, they change the hormone systems of people. They can affect reproduction, and often they are very persistent.
It's a very straightforward process. Each collection box comes in, it's had as an identifier, it's weighed to see how much materials have been received. Then the materials are, the mobile handsets are pulled out and separated into the different components. Up here in Sydney, we separate out the batteries from the accessories and the chargers and the handsets. They're then bulked up into large bins, like the one I'm standing next to, and then shipped down to Melbourne, where then they're accumulated with our other collections in Melbourne. And in the case of batteries and our circuit boards, they're shipped to Korea, where they're processed for the precious metals such as gold, silver, copper, nickel in the battery casings, cobalt, and also cadmium.
Are green issues important to ICT companies just because they want to feel good? Or does it mean good business for them? Is there a real value to being green? And how does this sit with their corporate social responsibilities?
There are a number of both commercial and sustainability benefits with increased use of broadband in particular. On one hand, if you look at just the payback to the economy of broadband in general, there are some statistics coming out of the US government today that show that $1 invested in broadband is a $10 payback to the economy.
More and more governments are coming to the realisation of the potential for ICT, particularly in the carbon footprint debate. The environment, climate change debate. So, I mean, this is an extraordinary technology that will transform the way we live our lives.
Going green makes sense. It not only makes sense for humanity, but it makes business sense. We have a very clear vision on this issue. I want strong commitment, I want coherence, and I want collaboration.
Now more than ever, we need that spirit that exists in the information communication technology field, that spirit of innovation, of entrepreneurship, that orientation around taking risks, making mistakes, and learning from their mistakes, mistakes being a portal of discovery. So my message to municipal leaders is take that spirit, that quality of innovation to the municipal sector, to the public sector. It is ready, fire, aim right now. We don't have the time to be patient here and wait for someone else to figure this out. Telecommunications, you get that. You don't exist. You reinvent or die. Government needs to adopt that same strategy because literally, in this case, if we don't reinvent, we will die. The planet is in peril.
Gavin Newsom with the final message there. Now, of course, the Governor of California. I also wanted to highlight a couple of the weekly episodes we produced. The following reports are from 2 episodes that tie in very nicely with today's theme of the circular economy. Judge for yourself how far we have come in 15 years and just how much more work we have to do. To be honest, it's all a little disappointing. But do remember, we were a lot younger back then.
If you think about the communications industry, its own footprint carries through its life cycle of development. There's carbon in creating literally the materials, the enclosures, the computer boards, and the chips, and so on. There's also the manufacturing process, and of course these things are shipped around the world, they're used, and then at some point they're decommissioned and recycled or disposed of. So all of that creates a carbon footprint.
Green production is not just about the use of materials. Everything from packaging and distribution to energy use in the manufacturing environment play their part. Companies have to consider the full product life cycle, otherwise known as cradle-to-grave philosophy.
Companies are increasingly getting the message, and I think realizing the reality that a green supply chain is also a lean supply chain, and that there is cost, inefficiency to be wrung out of their own internal operations as well as their interface or dealings with companies in their supply chain.
Being eco-friendly actually starts with manufacturing. And as you can see here, the materials we've selected are eco-friendly. This is actually plastic that comes from plastic bottles. The next step is ecologically friendly packaging. So this is recycled paper. It is soybean environmentally friendly ink, so that's all recycled and recyclable. Then it goes to the life of the phone. This one will charge with solar panels. It also has Energy Star rated charging devices.
A number of consumer electronics manufacturers are now offering green products. Some of these work on green energy, while others have been designed using green materials and result in less waste.
Greenheart is really a whole range of sustainability initiatives that we've taken across the company. The first and most important thing is that the entire portfolio itself follows sustainability principles. So we've taken a number of initiatives to improve the overall sustainability of all the products in our range. So for example, now moving away from paper manuals to having electronic manuals.
So the user guide's inside the phone, and just by a simple click you get into the user guide of the phone. So instead of having it on paper, in home, in your drawer or thrown away, you have it inside the phone. We save about 500 grams of paper per phone shipped. So we go from 550 grams to 42 grams per shipment, which is, 92% cut on paper shipped to each individual consumer.
On the phone itself, we're trying out recycled plastics that comes from water and milk bottles. We only have one material at a time, which makes it possible to recycle them. If we mix, bioplastics with ordinary plastic, afterwards we can't recycle them. So in this case, we've used recycled plastics and we can recycle them once more.
In a 2008 survey of 6,500 people from 13 countries, Nokia found that only 3% recycle their mobile phones. According to the study, one of the main reasons people rarely recycle phones is they are simply not aware of the option.
We've made a huge effort in Nokia to ensure that there is sort of a proper collection infrastructure in place in all the markets where we have our operations. So we have a take-back system that is implemented through our service centers, Nokia Care Centers, in over 85 countries.
All the customer need to do is to put in their details. After they input the details, there will be a barcode sticker that they have to just stick behind the device and just recycle it into a slot and a receipt will come out for the consumer. Nokia right now runs an incentive to the consumer called Recycle a Phone, Adopt a Tree program. After we get the details, we will send to the consumer a planting certificate, coordinates of the tree, latitude, longitudes, and they are able to view their tree in their name through Google Earth.
Refurbishment is an alternative, with many old products sent to developing countries.
You'll actually save $670 just in energy alone in reusing a computer rather than in purchasing a new one. Now, a computer that may not be the latest and the greatest can easily serve other types of population, and even in developing nations where they want to just set them up into a basic school environment, and kids want to use them for mathematics, for flashcards, for learning how to use a mouse and to actually get used to technology. Along with the $670 savings in energy, there's the savings in water pollution and air pollution, and the materials are being reused.
More than 4.6 million tons of e-waste ended up in US landfills in 2000. Of course, the alternative is to stop it before it starts. Now, one such idea is the universal phone charger.
And you and I all have closets full of chargers that frankly don't work with other manufacturers' handsets. And so we were working on this of trying to eliminate some of those chargers from our closets. And what we have now is an arrangement whereby we literally, by specifying that every new compliant handset will have a interface which is a micro USB interface with the phone. Then the plugs that are in the market, which by the way last a very long time, those plugs don't wear out very easily, they'll be energy efficient. So we in turn reduce the carbon footprint of the consumption.